start. My name is Haven Beck. I'm a trauma coach. I'm certified life coach and happiness coach. I started off coaching people with food issues, and it felt like stealing. People that have body issues and food issues will do anything to lose weight, and I didn't want to get paid for that desperation. Whereas with trauma coaching, people that have been traumatized are very cautious about who they work with. And I love that cautiousness, and I get to lean into it and just let people know that when it's time to work on your trauma, it is going to feel like this pressure in your chest, and it's just like the next thing you have to do. And if you don't feel like it's the next thing you have to do, then it's not time yet. And it's okay. You can wait until you know it's the next thing. A little bit about me. I'm 41 years old. I've lived like 9 different lives. I started putting on weight when I was about 8 years old. And so I think that I started having food issues or food addiction when I was 8. Before 8, I had an internal drugstore, and I probably did things to help feed that internal drugstore, like push people's buttons or not do homework or be late for things, you know, things that would like make things a little exciting and be like, oh, am I gonna get in trouble for that? Am I gonna get away with it, right? And these are all like internal drugstore things, you know, to pull me out of my emotions. If you eat to be too full, that physical sensation will pull you out of emotions. If you are worried about getting in trouble, that will pull you out of your internal turmoil. But once your internal drugs aren't enough to mask your emotions, then you're going to change, and you're going to start adding external drugs to up the ante. And so that's when sugar and flour and highly processed foods, or drugs and alcohol, sex addiction, gambling, all of them are the same thing. They up the ante of your internal drugs. I started doing methamphetamine when I was 14, and that was a really good drug. I got sober when I was 15. Well, okay, good as in it really distracted me from my internal feelings. I'm not recommending doing that. But I got sober when I was 15, and I started working on myself. I fell into perfectionism, which is another really great drug. And it turns out that overproductivity is my drug of choice. And I am in overproductivity as of right now. Like, I love ticking things off of a list. Like that little like dopamine rush of like, did it. And I will sacrifice my mental health, and I will sacrifice my physical body, like just to feel like I've done enough, right? I was sober for 8.5 years. I relapsed when I was 23, got sober again when I was 30. My top weight was 235 pounds. I got sober off of flour and sugar when I was 31. And I realized that like those were just symptoms. They were symptoms of trauma. And I was in these groups, and I was just watching people struggle. And my perfectionism and like me getting high off of being told I'm a good girl, like really helped me do programs. But not everybody fell into that. Other people couldn't be told what to do. And all of our symptoms are pretty different, and we'll go into that. But I just realized that addiction is a symptom, and typically it's a symptom of trauma. It is something that we do to mask how we feel. And I wanted to help all of these people. I thought I needed to study trauma work explicitly for about 10 years before I was worthy of becoming a coach. And I had a friend that was starting a business about 2.5 years ago, and she said, no, you're ready. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I started being a coach in her business, and her business went under within 6 months, but I already had these clients. And so I started my own business and just realized that the way that I have formulated these like specialized programs and like the special coaching packages that I do, they match like the top leaders of trauma. Like my mom said, I am on top of what they are talking about with trauma. And I listen to Brene Brown, and I listen to Gabor Mate, and I listen to Claudia Black, and I go, okay, those are the same things I'm saying, and sometimes I say them better, and so it's like, I don't know why, but I have a gift for this, and it excites me and it fills my soul. And some people, they go to their job like figuring out how they can do less of it, and I am like leaning in, like, how can I do more? And it's a really beautiful thing to be excited. Another gift I have, I just want to mention, is that my husband makes enough money, and so anything I make from this, like, it's just extra. And it's really beautiful to be able to lean into trauma work, not needing the paycheck. So I can tell you, like, if you're not ready for it, or you're too busy, or like, I don't need you, like, I want you, right? And so it's a really beautiful place to be. My mom talked a little bit about generational trauma. And so what I know, what my grandmother and my great aunt told me, is that their mom, who was like 5'10" and a certain size, would only buy clothes that fit her. And they would, and my grandma and my great aunt were like 5'1". And so my great grandmother would be buying these clothes that would fit a 5'10" woman with a certain size, and say, like, this is the right size, figure it out, right? And so that was what my great grandmother was working with. And so my grandmother was telling my mother, it's like, be blonder, get a nose job, lose weight, right? And then my mom, to me, never said any of those things. She would say it to the mirror, though. And so I learned it from the way that she talked to herself, right? Like, something must be wrong with me physically. I also had my grandmother telling me to be blonder, and then I had a dad telling me to lose 30 pounds, and that I needed my ears pinned back, right? And so it's like, there's just trauma. And what we learn about it, right, is that it's generational and it's blameless. It is not my great-grandmother's fault. It's not my grandmother's fault. It's not my mom's fault. These are things that we've been taught. And not only that, I want to respect the time. Not only that, sometimes trauma happens within a family that's nobody's fault. Somebody gets cancer, and the entire family unit has to change to support one person being sick, and that's nobody's fault. People die. Your mom dies in labor, right? And it absolutely wounds the family, but it's blameless, right? You lived through the Depression. That is a huge trauma, and it's not your fault, but we change. Another thing about trauma is that just because it's normal doesn't mean it's not traumatic. And so we went through a whole generation of latchkey kids, where these kids were at school all day away from their parents, and then they come home to an empty house, and that is absolutely traumatic, even though it was normalized. And so a lot of trauma work is just giving yourself permission that if it felt wrong, it was wrong. And so we have our adult brain that continues to tell us, like, don't feel that. That makes no sense. Get over it. It's been 40 years already, right? And trauma is about, like, leaning into the heart talk, where it's like, I'm so sorry you feel that way. It makes sense that you're sad. It makes sense that you're upset. Here's one of my traumas. It makes sense that you're upset that somebody was 5 minutes late. If you grew up with a dad that was constantly making you wait 30 minutes to 3 hours on street corners, like, it's okay that that's triggering for you, right? And so instead of using my logic brain of going, like, it was 5 minutes, Haven, get over it, it's like, of course that hurts. It's touching a deep wound. And so now that I know that I have permission to feel the way that I feel, I get to lean into healing it, right? Because it's not your fault I'm traumatized. It's my trigger. It's my responsibility. But before I can heal it, I need to acknowledge it. And so just so much of trauma work is leaning in and saying, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Like, it makes sense that you feel that way. Anybody would feel that way. All right, I'm going to go into the slides. With what is trauma? I'll wait for it. There we go. All right, so what is trauma? Trauma is a single big event or a series of small events that are life-threatening or perceived that way. Trauma is an event that causes someone to feel hurt, discarded, unloved, unwanted, or uncared for. It can be from growing up in dysfunction, watching a loved one struggle with illness, or a single event such as a car crash or witnessing a fight. What is traumatic for you may not be traumatic for someone else. It does not matter why certain events were traumatic for you. Just acknowledging that they were, and then taking the steps to heal our old wounds. When trauma is left unresolved, The feelings are often recreated in future relationships and work situations. And I can be in a car crash with you, and it wasn't traumatic for me, but it was traumatic for you. And that's allowed, right? Like, we don't have to use our rational brain for it. Next slide, why treat trauma? And thank you, Dawn, for all of your hard work. Why treat trauma? So addictions are a disease of the mind, body, and spirit. We treat the physical symptoms by removing the substances that create cravings for alcohol, gambling, processed foods, etc. Once the expression of our addiction is removed, we are left with all the reasons we started to eat, drink, gamble, etc. In the first place for our unresolved trauma. If there is any hope of staying free from addictive foods, gambling, sex, constant productivity, that trauma needs to be acknowledged and healed. Trauma work will begin that process. We'll go into the symptoms of trauma, and then if somebody has a specific symptom that really resonates with you, I will lean into talking about that specific topic for the rest of our time. All right, symptoms of growing up with trauma. Be surprised. All right, confuse normal behavior with dysfunctional behavior. Avoiding honesty to avoid true rejection. Judging yourself mercilessly. Feel you are surviving, not living. Having difficulty having fun. Take yourself very seriously. Lose the ability to feel, disassociate. Overreact to the unexpected. Constantly seek approval and affirmation. Feel that feel that you are different from other people. You are extremely loyal, even in the face of evidence that the loyalty is undeserved. Feel alone, even when with people. Fear people and or authority figures. Become approval seekers. Be frightened of angry people. Be terrified of personal criticism. Become addicts, marry them, or both. View life as a victim. Have an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Be concerned more with others than yourself. Feel guilty when you stand up for yourself. Become addicted to excitement. Confuse love and pity by loving people who need rescuing. Stuff your feelings. Have very low self-esteem. Become terrified of abandonment. And react to events instead of taking a pause. So that is not by any means a comprehensive list, but I used to think that that was just my personality, right? Like, I'm just an overworker. Like, I just like doing more. Like, no, I like people pleasing. I want to make sure that you're happy, you know. And society really applauds you overworkers. I love that you're giving me 60 hours when I'm only paying you for 40, right? Like, what a good person. Instead, it's like, no, that is a trauma response. I am not worthy of your love unless I put in more than you expect, right? Does anybody have a specific symptom of growing up with trauma you would like me to discuss? Starting with Zoom. I have, I guess, 5 more minutes, but I can go a little bit over to do 2 if we want.
Judging yourself mercilessly.
The chat?
Judging yourself mercilessly.
Okay, so the examples of that, okay. Judging yourself mercilessly. That is the idea that Mom talked about that, right? Like, did I do that okay? Was that enough? Oh, I was so stupid. I can't believe I said that. Why did I wear that to that date? Like, oh, that didn't make me look good. I can't believe I said that. Oh, I went in and it wasn't my turn to merge. I should have let them go first. What a mistake, right? I mean, mercilessly, right? There's nothing that you can do that's going to be okay. Typically, if that is your experience, you have done two things. You have had somebody that has always told you what you have done is not enough, and you probably relate to the other one, which is terrified of personal criticism. And so if you are terrified of personal criticism, you are typically judging yourself mercilessly because you want to get to it before somebody tells you, right? And so there's this idea that you have this critical parent, and they are going to make sure you already know everything that's wrong with you so that if somebody tells you, you're not surprised. And the lie is that if I tell myself over and over again, if I berate myself, then it won't hurt as much when you say so. When the reality is that we are just living it twice, right? We are hurting ourselves continuously, and when somebody else tells us, it hurts even more. And so there's a lot of lies that we tell ourselves thinking that we're protecting ourselves, but in reality, we're just hurting ourselves double. Anybody in the audience, in the physical audience, have a topic that they resonated with or want more information on? Right? So I also am constantly seeking approval, and that goes along with terrified of abandonment. This idea that if you don't approve of me, I'll die, right? If you don't approve of me, you'll leave, right? And if you suffer from continual abandonment, whether it was emotional or actually physical, right? We have an inner child that doesn't view the world with adult eyes. It views it from this idea that I need someone to take care of me. And if you leave, I will literally die. If you think about little kids, if nobody's there to feed them or change them or put them to bed or brush their teeth, like they are not capable of taking care of themselves. And so we have a very young self that thinks in these same thought patterns of this idea that I can't bear for you to leave. I've spent so much time alone. And telling my mom's story, her dad left and her mom had to take on 2 jobs, and it was 4 kids doing, what's that book? Lord of the Flies, right? 4 kids trying to feed themselves, taking care of themselves, disciplining each other, right? Like with insanity and the chaos of it, right? And so that was what my mom grew up with, and there is a part of her that hasn't healed from it because there's still very much the fear of if you leave, I'm going to go back to that chaos. And so what we do is we lean into this idea of like, I get that it's really scary if they don't like you. Like it is really scary of the idea that somebody might leave. But I want to let you know that like we are not 5 anymore. We are not 7 anymore. And if they go, you're going to be okay. And then we lean into that inner child, like these questions of like, what does being okay look like? Like, is there a song that sort of makes your heart feel bigger? Is there a scented candle that makes you smile? Maybe there's a lotion, right? And so then we start experimenting with these ways of communicating and connecting with the inner child that sort of just makes them feel better. And so like I've done a lot of work, right? So it's like putting on lotion, rubbing away from your heart. How does that feel? Rubbing towards your heart. How does that feel? And if you do one way and you're like, that's so nice, and you do it that way and you're like, oh, you go like, thank you so much for letting me know. Hand on the heart, hand on the breastplate. It's like very grounding. It keeps you in yourself instead of going far away, disassociating. And so like, thank you for the information. I have a client that loves to kiss herself on the shoulders. And so I was like, let me try that. I was like, ew. And I don't know why that makes me grossed out, but it does. And I just go, thank you for letting me know. Even when I do it for you guys again, I'm like, nope, still the same reaction. But here's what I found out. Kissing myself on the back of the hand makes my heart grow a little bit. I'm like, I don't know if it's like watching Disney movies and like there's something like so romantic without any like predatory action, right? Like it's just like a sweet, like, I want to take care of you forever type of feeling. And I I go, oh, isn't that nice to know? And everybody's different. And so it's like really like learning more about yourself. And it's like so sweet. But you have to lean in. And that's what so much of trauma work is like, if you have a reaction to something, believe you, right? Like there is a reason for it. Don't push it down. Don't rationalize. There's the acronym JADE: justify, argue, defend, or explain. If you are feeling something, you do not have to justify it. You don't have to argue with yourself about it. You don't have to defend it, and you don't have to explain it. You just believe it. And that type of connection to yourself is going to create more dialogue where you get to learn more and more. Society has taught us that emotions are not rational, period. That you are not allowed to have a big feeling about anything. When my dad died, people would say the dumbest things. Like, were you expecting it? How long was he sick? I'm like, my dad died. Like, why does it matter? Like, it hurts because it hurts. I had 2 miscarriages. They were both within the first trimester. And people would ask, like, oh, but how early was it? I go, it doesn't matter. It was an incredible loss. So it's nobody's fault to ask these dumb questions. It is society trying to rationalize it because we haven't been given permission to have emotions. And so the beginning of trauma work is like just believing you and leaning into it. I think that's past my time. All right. Thank you guys for the opportunity.